You're listening to the REI Marketing Nerds Podcast, the leading resource for real estate investors who want to dominate their market online. Dan Barrett is the founder of AdWords Nerds, a high-tech digital agency focusing exclusively on helping real estate investors like you get more leads and deals online, outsmart your competition, and live a freer, more awesome life. And now, your host, Dan Barrett.
Hey guys, welcome back. You're listening to the second part of last week's episode. Let's jump back in.
I do think you mentioned like coaching programs and stuff, right? And like one of the kind of statistics that always blows my mind, and you probably know this better than I do because you've done so much online educational work where it's like, you buy a program, but like 80% of people never finish it, right? They don't watch all the videos, like they paid for it, but they didn't actually get it, right? And I think a lot of times we use knowledge, like the learning of something, or you go to an event and you feel cool and it feels fun and interesting and it's exciting. That's actually like a defense against changing anything, right? It's like, well, I did the work in my head, and it kind of excuses you on some level of, like you said, needing to sit down at the phone and just make the calls that maybe you don't want to make. So I think that's very true. Well, let's talk about you specifically then, because I do think you're right? Every market is hard in its own unique way. You're doing like pretty much all direct mail, which is kind of my understanding just from our brief conversation. So talk about what you're seeing in mail. Like how is mail changing, or how has it changed? Maybe it hasn't changed, right? Maybe that's its strength. I personally don't know a lot about it, so I would love kind of your take on like what's going on in direct mail right now.
The direct mail response rates aren't as good as they were in land maybe 3 years ago. And you hear people talking about that. And yeah, it is. But again, compared to what?
Yeah.
It's still 3-4 times better than houses.
Yeah.
But I used to, now in this one county in Florida, I'm looking at my numbers right here. I have a 3.5% response rate. With this same mail, I would have gotten 5 or 6% response rate, maybe 10% response rate 5 years ago.
Yeah.
But dang it, like 3.5% is still really good, right?
Yeah.
So what number doesn't change is the amount of deals per offers that you make, or the amount of offers you need to make to get a deal. And that's always going to be, in my world, 20 to 30, let's say 25 offers per deal, right? So it's just a numbers game. And I often say this, your speed to income is directly proportional to the number of offers that you make.
Yeah.
So just focus on making offers. Make 5 offers a week, 1 offer a day. And if you don't have the money for direct mail, you'll find a way to find a deal to make an offer on it. All right. So direct mail, I'm always testing and tweaking new things, letters, postcards. I do find the thing that I love about direct mail better than any other marketing strategy is I can target the specific type of property that I want. I can target 1 to 20 acres in these zip codes owned by these kinds of people. So my favorite list is 0.2 acre. If I'm in Florida, maybe 0.2 acres to 5 acres. People who have owned that land for over 10 years, who live outside of the county. So they're more distant from it. They're farther away from it. They don't, they bought it a long time ago, and it's in these specific areas where there's a lot of activity. For houses, you could pull a list of, built after 1950. If it's even in Florida, you could pick sometimes stick construction or block constructions. So it depends kind of, that can determine the type of construction quality and hurricane season and all that.
Right.
But you could say, I only want properties that are between 1,000 and 2,000 square feet, or 3+ bedrooms, So it gives you, or with a garage, or in some areas you could say, I only want properties that have a brick facade, not siding.
Yeah.
Like in St. Louis, you could do that. So that's a great thing about land, is you can target specific properties in specific areas and specific owners, and then get responses from them. After that, it's just a lot of testing, and with anything, with direct mail, you've got to be not just one and done. You've got to be consistently with it. You've got to be, if you found a good county, you can't just mail them once. You need to mail them every 2 or 3 months. And then once a lead comes in, You need to follow up with those leads every 30 days forever. That's where the money comes in. It comes in from that momentum.
Yeah.
That's the third time they've seen your letter. It's the fourth time they've seen your offer. They're like, this guy must really want my property. I'm going to call him. So you're always there in front of them. And I like boring, plain direct mail, right? Like the more professional it looks, the worse it performs.
Yeah.
You don't want the glossy, colorful photos. You just want plain, boring, typewritten, like old typewriter font style, ugly postcards. They just work better. One of the postcards that we've been doing recently, it's called the Third Notice postcard. You just Google it and you'll see. It caused a lot of controversy a while ago, maybe 5 years ago, because so many investors were sending it out. And it looks like a spammy postcard. I've softened the language a lot, so I don't get as many angry calls.
Right.
But I've been doing that postcard now for land, and I'm seeing double, triple the response rates that I normally do. And so it's just a matter of whether it's a postcard or a letter, try to be different, try to make it a pattern interrupt. And when I say different, don't think, oh, well, Joe's doing plain, boring, ugly postcards. I should do colorful, glossy picture postcards. Don't. Test it if you want, but I'm telling you, it's a giant waste of money.
Yeah.
And you get junk mail, and we want that seller to open it. And I'll tell you one thing too. This is working the best. If you can get a yellow, and if you have a tight budget, you can. This letter works really good. Handwrite 10 or 20 or 30 of these every day, or print them on a printer with yellow legal pad of paper, and crumple it up, then open it back up and fold it into fourths, put it in a wedding invitation style envelope, handwrite on that envelope with a stamp, make the stamp a little crooked, and send this out. And what this does is it's curiosity. They're like, they get the envelope and it's kind of thick.
Yeah.
And they feel, and then, they open the envelope and there's a crumpled up letter in there. And they're like, what is this? And they're going to open it. They're going to read it. They're going to say, oh, and then it says, hey, don't throw me away at the very top,
Yeah.
It says, hey, Jim, my husband and I are looking for some land to buy in the area. If you're interested in selling your 2.4 acre vacant lot, please call this number. Thanks, Victoria.
Yeah.
So it's a letter from a woman, and it says, my husband and I are looking to buy some land. And this now this is manual, but if you have a tight budget and you're sending 10 or 20, 30 of these a night while you're watching Yellowstone, you're going to get, 5 to 10% response rate on these things.
Yeah.
And 20, you're going to get 1 to 2 leads a day from this thing. And it works really, really well.
Yeah.
That's why I like direct mail.
I mean, I get it's like you said, right? It is about, no matter what your obstacle is, like you said, you don't have a budget or whatever, not letting that be an excuse not to take action. It reminds me of, I remember I don't know if I read it or saw him do this live, but it was like Dan Kennedy is one of the great direct response copywriter guys of all time. I remember him being asked, if you had to start over today, so you don't have any more, you're starting over today, what would you? And it was you only have $10 or something, whatever the question is. And he's like, I go down to the store, I buy stamps and I buy envelopes, and then I'm just writing letters by hand and putting them in the mail. And that's what I'm doing. You know what I mean? He's like, it's not rocket science. You just got to send out offers to people. And there's not a lot stopping you. Like you said, you have some time, you write it by hand. It doesn't have to cost a ton of money. And, we were kind of talking about this too. I'm an online marketer person. I love marketing online. I'll do that probably forever. But I do think there's something to be said for, we are so digital and we're so online all the time and we're so on our phones and we're all reading a million emails and all that stuff. It is actually a bit of a pattern interrupt, like you mentioned, to get something in the mail, right? It's like you get, it's like just a different thing. And it can be a lot easier to stand out than people tend to think. I want to ask you, you mentioned the follow-up as being so critical, which I totally agree. You have long really been a very automation-heavy kind of business owner. That's one of the things I really dig about your approach. You mentioned FreedomSoft. FreedomSoft used to be Infusionsoft. Is that right?
No, they're completely different.
No, they're completely different. Okay, so explain FreedomSoft to me then, because I thought those were the same thing.
No, yeah. FreedomSoft is a CRM made for real estate investors.
Okay.
And Rob Swanson owns it. A guy named Preston Ely created it way back in 2008 or something. But when Rob Swanson bought it maybe 10 years ago, he's done a lot to really, really improve it, make it better. It's very fast. It's not perfect, but there's no CRM out there that is.
Yeah.
I enjoy it. I like it because it keeps me organized in all my leads. I can send my direct mail through it. I can send text messages through it. I can make inbound and outbound phone calls through it. And it all keeps the conversation in the thread of that lead. It gives you websites. The websites are okay. They're just they're a good place to get started.
Yeah.
The cool thing too is if you have a Carrot website or another website you've built on your own through Squarespace or Wix or whatever, FreedomSoft will give you embedded forms. So you could create a form for name, phone number, and email and address or whatever.
Yeah.
And then it gives you the code then that you could put that on any website that you have. And then when somebody inputs that information into that lead, it creates a new record in FreedomSoft, and you could set up automation where it sends them a text right away. It can send them an email right away. And if you get their address, you could set it up where, I don't know if it'll automatically send them a letter in the mail, but just a couple clicks of the button, you could send them a postcard or a letter or something. So that's one thing I like about it a lot.
Yes.
And if you're doing houses, you can get lists of houses inside of FreedomSoft. Pretty soon land. I keep on bugging Rob about this. If any of you listening to this know Rob Swanson, send him a text right now or an email and say, hey, Rob, when are you adding land into FreedomSoft? But it's close. He keeps on telling me it is.
That's cool.
Want to find motivated seller leads online, but don't know where to start? Download our free Motivated Seller Keyword Report today. AdWords nerds have spent over $5 million this year researching the most profitable keywords for finding motivated seller leads. And you can grab these exact keywords when you download our report at www.adwordsnerds.com/keywords.
I wanted to ask you because you've been so deep in this for so long, and I am a big fan of automation and stuff. Have you been interested in or using AI at all in your business and your personal life? Like, where does that fit in for you, if anywhere?
Man, I use AI, ChatGPT, to help me maybe write a sales letter, for my course or my programs. One thing I don't have yet that I would love to be able to get is there's a software called Priced, PRYCD,
Okay.
that gets data from DataTree, and you can download lists of vacant land. So if anybody's interested, go to joemccall.com/priced, PRYCD. And what they do is they'll give you land data, and then they will give you comps on each property based on other similar properties that are for sale or sold in that area. And so they have a formula and an algorithm that goes out and scrapes, hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of properties that are currently on the market and have recently sold, and gives you an average price per acre. And so every property it gives you, it tells you, hey, this property is maybe worth this, and you should buy it for this. And so it's kind of like gives you the Zestimate value for land that Zillow does, right?
Yeah.
So the cool thing about that is now I have 10,000 records of vacant land in this county. And, their estimated offer price or estimated value will get you 75, 85% of the way there. It's good, but it's so what I would wish I could get AI to do for me is when a seller goes to my website or maybe texts me the reference ID that's on the postcard I send them. Every postcard or letter I send has a reference ID, which links it back to that property. It could ask them, hey, we'd love to make you an offer on your property. What's the reference ID? And it gives them, they put in the reference ID or a code or whatever. And they say, all right. So, you could ask them a series of questions. What's more important to you, to sell this property for the highest amount or as fast as possible? And then walks them down this decision tree and then says, okay, well, what do you think your property's worth? Great. How did you come up with that number? You can have this in conversation. And then it asks them, well, what would you want to sell it for? And if they say, well, I'd want to sell it for 20 grand, it knows the number that I think it's worth. And then it could ask them questions based on that. Well, is that the lowest you could go? No. Well, if we're going to make you an offer, we would need to be around this price range, right? And so that would be super cool. And I don't know anybody that can do that yet, but I think that's a game changer. And it's different than houses, because houses you can get Zestimate values pretty easily,
Yeah.
You can't with land. But if there could be some kind of way where, if the seller won't give you a price, you could say, well, since you won't give us a price, we might not be interested in this property. We can give you the names and phone numbers of 5 realtors that sell land in the area.
Yeah.
Would you be interested? And then maybe it could say then, well, if we gave you a cash offer, it would be around, no, this is what I like to say. If they won't give me a number, because maybe they don't know. It's some lady whose husband died 10 years ago. He bought the property 30 years ago. She has no idea what it's worth.
Yeah.
We could maybe the AI could say, hey, what do you think it's worth? She doesn't know. We say, well, if we were, not saying we could do this, but if we were to offer something around this price range, what would you think? Or what would you do then? Or you wouldn't be interested, would you? And then if they get real mad, like, oh, that's ridiculous. I said, well, good thing I didn't offer that then, though, right? So what do we need to do to get you to that number?
Yeah.
This is why it's important to just talk to these sellers on the phone, right? But if there is a way you could automate that kind of a conversation by text or chat bot or something, that would be super cool. And I bet you there's somebody out there smart enough that's already built that or is working on it now. Please, I'll give you my cell phone number. Call me. I'd love to be able to talk to you about that, because I think that's next level right there, isn't it?
All right. I will give this to you off the podcast. I have a person who I think might be able to build that, because that's like what they do now is like they basically build like conversational over the phone or a chatbot or whatever. And yeah, man, that technology is wild. And there's a lot of people doing really awesome stuff. So I don't know. Again, I'm not 100% sure because that's not my field of expertise, but I will connect you. And
please,
awesome.
please.
Okay.
And I don't want to pay $5 billion to get this thing built either. But
honestly, I mean, that's the cool thing about it. I mean, it's like I use GPT a lot. Like I use it, Chat GPT version. I use the API version a lot. We produce stuff at AdWords Nerds with it. Like we produce explanations of account data, like that we send to clients, right? Like all the stuff that we, reports being generated. It's like, it feels like I use it a lot to the point where I'm like always worried, because I'm like, it's a lot of, and then I get my
Well, here's the funny thing real quick. I was on Zoom yesterday and somebody had one of those bots that takes notes.
Yeah.
I think it was Otter.
Yeah.
And before the meeting ended, there in the chat was a 4 bullet point summary of the main items that we discussed.
Yeah. Isn't that cool? It's like the best thing. Yeah. It's like I use Grain for that. That's one of my favorites. But the thing that I love about it is like I get my invoice from OpenAI every month and it's like $2. You know what I mean? It's like, it's real. Those tools are really amazing. So I will connect you. I don't know what it's going to cost, but probably not $5 million.
And if anybody knows somebody who can help me with this and do it for me, don't teach me how to do it. I'm not that smart.
Well, and there's a lot of space. Hey, and if you're listening to this, there's a free business idea, right? Just figure this out. And there's a lot of space there. I don't want to keep you too long. I know we're coming up on time. You mentioned that you are now doing, you're doing stuff on Saturdays. If you want to go check this out, it's at Joe McCall. So just in case you're in your car or whatever, it's JoeMcCall. So joemccall.com/Saturday. So what are you doing on Saturdays?
Every Saturday for a while now, I'm going to be doing workshops where I'm going to be, my thinking behind this was like, and I love doing this. I geek and nerd out over it.
Yeah.
Where I'm going to let the audience pick a market. Pellegrino, baby. All right.
I know. Look, I'm dying over here. But yeah, please tell me.
I want the audience to pick a market, and then I'm going to go into that market. I'm going to set up a marketing campaign, and we're going to see who the buyers are. We're going to pull a list of sellers. I'm going to set up a direct mail campaign. We're going to start a cold calling campaign. We're going to see who the buyers are. We're going to start calling realtors, maybe calling sellers, and start making offers in 3 hours. So my goal is like, if I had to start all over again from scratch, go into a brand new market and set up a land investing business, what would I do? And it's going to be teaching, but also just watching me do it, because I want to show people how easy this is. And it's just $7. So if you go to joemccall.com/Saturday, you get to watch me go into a brand new market. It'll be about a 3-hour workshop. And you're getting a ton of value and information in it. And just watch what I do. Listen to me. We'll pick a market. I'll show you why I like these markets and not these markets or whatever. And then I'll set it. I use FreedomSoft. So you don't have to use FreedomSoft yourself either, but that's why I like it. I use it. We'll set it up in FreedomSoft. We'll pull a list. We'll start a direct mail campaign, start a cold calling campaign, get some leads, and I might call some realtors. I might call some sellers. We'll call some people. Now, sometimes it's hard because you get a lot of voicemails when you call. So we'll see what happens. I have no idea. I might look pretty cool. I might have egg on my face. Like I might have problems, and I don't know. It's going to be warts and all. You get to see me go into a new market and set up. So I'm calling it the Land Fast Start Challenge.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of fun. And I like doing this. And sometimes what I do is I'll set this up for somebody who's on the workshop watching. So I might set this up for them.
I love that as a concept because one is super practical. I mean, people always have this question of, well, like, of course you're successful, you're Joe McCall, but if you had to start over, so it's like you're answering that question, which is the coolest thing. Two, it's totally practical, hands-on, right? So you're seeing it done. I actually think the idea of seeing you run into problems is probably the most interesting thing, right? Because it's like, when you run into something that you don't expect, what do you do about it? You get to see you problem solve in real time. I think that's awesome, dude. For $7, that's really cool. That's a great idea.
Yeah. Well, I have an ulterior motive.
Okay.
I'm not just doing this out of the kindness of my heart. I do have a program that I sell, and so you'll get an opportunity to hear me talk about it at the end. But yeah, it's for $7. It's an incredible value, and it's a lot of fun. I'm giving it a shot. I've done it about 3 or 4 times before, and I'm going to start doing it more regularly now on Saturdays. And yeah, check it out. If you can't make it live on Saturday, you'll get access to the recordings.
All right, sweet. Okay, so that if you are listening to this is a no-brainer. I think you should do this thing. I'm probably going to sign up for this thing because I'm very curious. JoeMcCall.com. So JoE, M as in Mary, CCALL.com. So JoeMcCall.com/Saturday to go sign up for the Saturday workshop, or you could just go to Joe's website. He's got his products there. You've been, again, and I'll just say this, like I've talked to everybody in the industry, talked to a lot of people. I know a lot of coaches, know a lot of people. I will say, just if you're listening to this, I consistently get the best feedback about Joe's programs of pretty much anybody in the industry. That has been very consistent for years now. He puts a lot of effort into his stuff, which I really appreciate as someone who buys a lot of programs and stuff. So if you're thinking about it, it's $7. Go check it out. See if it's for you. Joe McCall, thank you so much for being here, man. This was a blast. It really taught me a lot. I'm curious about land myself. So this was awesome, dude. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dan Barrett. Appreciate you.
I got real pumped after this episode. Joe is an incredibly insightful and smart investor. We're super happy to have him on the show. Hope you got a ton out of it. Hey, by the way, please, if you could go leave this podcast a review wherever you happen to download your podcast. It really does help me out. I've been doing this podcast for so many years now, and every review helps new people find the show. I really deeply appreciate it. I appreciate you. Thank you for listening every week. I hope you continue to get value out of it. I hope you have a great rest of your week, and I will talk to you very soon. Cheers.
This is thepodcastfactory.com.